સુધી રૂબરૂમાં અમે તમને રૂબરૂ કરાવ્યા છે એવી હસ્તીઓને જેમણે તેમની કારકિર્દીમાં એક અનોખી ટોચ મેળવી છે અને ખૂબ સફળ થયા છે. પણ આજે અમે તમને મળાવવા જઈ રહ્યા છીએ એક એવા વ્યક્તિને કે જેમણે માત્ર પોતે જ સફળ કારકિર્દી નથી બનાવી, પરંતુ ઘણા વિદ્યાર્થીઓને મદદ કરી છે તેમનું ભવિષ્ય કંડારવામાં. આજે આપણે મળીશું વિરલ દોશી એસોસિએટના વિરલ દોશીને, જેઓ પોતાની કાઉન્સેલિંગ, સલાહ અને અનુભવો દ્વારા વિદ્યાર્થીઓને યોગ્ય માર્ગદર્શન આપે છે તેમની કારકિર્દી અંગે. તો ચાલો મળીએ વિરલ દોશીને.
વિરાજી, સ્વાગત છે તમારું રૂબરૂમાં. વિરાજી, હું શરૂઆત કરીશ તમારા એજ્યુકેશનથી. તમે એન્જિનિયરિંગની ડિગ્રી મેળવી છે, પછી તરત તમે એઝ અ બેન્કર કામ કર્યું, પછી મુંબઈ આવીને તમે ફેક્ટરી ખોલી અને પછી તમે એજ્યુકેશન બિઝનેસમાં આવ્યા. આ કઈ રીતે થયું?
લોંગ હિસ્ટ્રી. અહીંયા મેં મારું સ્કૂલિંગ પતાવ્યું કેથીડ્રલ સ્કૂલમાંથી, અને પછી આઈ વેન્ટ ટુ ઇંગ્લેન્ડ, અને ત્યાં પછી મેં A levels કર્યું, ફર્ધર એજ્યુકેશન ઇન સ્કૂલિંગ. અને પછી માય ફાધર વોઝ એન્જિનિયર. ત્યારે યુ કુડન્ટ ડિસાઇડ વોટ ટુ ડુ. યુ આસ્ક યોર ફાધર શું કરવું છે, હી સેડ બીકમ એન એન્જિનિયર, અને હી પેક્ડ મી ઓફ ટુ ધ US. યુએસમાં એન્જિનિયરિંગ પતાવ્યું ત્યારે 80s there was a very big demand for going to the finance field. એટલે like everybody else, I also went to the finance field. એકવાર ફાઇનાન્સમાં 2-3 વર્ષ કામ કર્યું બેન્કિંગમાં, અને ત્યારે પછી અર્જ હતી કે ચાલો ઇન્ડિયા આવીએ પાછા અને અહીંયા મેન્યુફેક્ચરિંગ કાંઈ કરીએ, બિકોઝ યુ આર એન એન્જિનિયર અને એન્જિનિયરિંગ સાથે તમારે કામ કરવું હતું. એટલે ફર્સ્ટ ક્લાસ ઓપોર્ચ્યુનિટી મળી ટુ ટાઈ વિથ અમેરિકન કંપની એન્ડ બ્રિંગ ધેમ ઇન ટુ ઇન્ડિયા ટુ મેક સુપર અલોયઝ. સો માય ફાધર એન્ડ માય સેલ્ફ, અમે લોકો સાથે ફેક્ટરી ખોલી અહીંયા, અને that was doing very well. And about 15 years ago we had a big strike at our plant, and over these years when I was in India, ત્યારે I used to help a lot of children with career planning, career mentoring, because અહીંયા જોતો હતો કે હું પાછો આવ્યો ત્યારે very few children had any advice કે રીતે career plan કરવું જોઈએ, શું કરવું જોઈએ. So I used to do this as a hobby on the weekends. અને પછી we had a strike at our plant about 15 years ago, and that time I decided let me do something which I enjoy. And my enjoyment was working with children. So I decided, let me do something different at Tiana, not to go back into manufacturing, but follow my passion. And passion was to work with children. Tiare we opened a Viral Doshi Associates.
So that's what. So હું એ જ ક્વેશ્ચન પર આવવા માંગતી હતી વિરાજી, કે વિરલ દોશી એસોસિએટ્સ શું પ્રોવાઈડ કરે છે કાઉન્સેલિંગમાં, અને શું પેકેજ હોય છે ફોર ધ સ્ટુડન્ટ્સ?
અમે લોકો 5 વર્ટિકલમાં છે. પહેલું વર્ટિકલ જે છે ઇઝ કરિયર કાઉન્સેલિંગ. આજે તમે જોશો ચિલ્ડ્રનને એજ ગ્રુપ ઓફ 14 to 18 આ વેરી કન્ફ્યુઝ, શું કરિયર કરવું જોઈએ, કેવી રીતે કરવું જોઈએ, ક્યાં કરવું જોઈએ, હુ ઇઝ ધેર ટુ ગાઈડ ધેમ. આજે તમે સ્કૂલોમાં જોશો, કોલેજીસમાં જોશો, તો વેરી ફ્યુ કરિયર કાઉન્સલર્સ. એટલે આઈ ડિસાઇડ લેટ્સ મી ટ્રાય એન્ડ ફિલ દેટ નીશ જે છે કે ભાઈ ટુ ગાઈડ ચિલ્ડ્રન એજ ગ્રુપ ઓફ 14 to 18 ઓન કરિયર પ્લાનિંગ. સો વન થિંગ દેટ વી ડુ ઇઝ કરિયર કાઉન્સલિંગ. સેકન્ડ, પછી તમે કરિયર કાઉન્સલિંગ કરશો એટલે પીપલ આર વેરી કન્ફ્યુઝ કે હવે 10મી પછી અમારે કયા આજે બોર્ડ લેવા જોઈએ. આજે ISC બોર્ડ છે, CBSE બોર્ડ છે, HSC બોર્ડ છે, A levels, IB છે. સો વી એડવાઇઝ them on complete schooling, કે તમારું કેવી રીતે સ્કૂલિંગ તમારું 9th to the 12th પ્લાનિંગ કરવું જોઈએ. થર્ડ વર્ટિકલ વોઝ કોલેજ કાઉન્સલિંગ. તમે 12મી પતાવો એટલે પછી તમારે કયા કોલેજમાં જવું છે, શું કરિયર કરવું છે, ક્યાં કરવું છે, કેવી રીતે કરવું જોઈએ. દેટ્સ અવર થર્ડ વર્ટિકલ. તો ફોર્થ વર્ટિકલ ઇઝ બેઝિકલી doing advisory services for schools and colleges on career counseling centers. I always believed કે હવે ઇન્ડિયામાં બી every school should have a career counselor. તમે જો તમારે સ્કૂલમાં કે મારી સ્કૂલમાં we never had career counselors. We decided careers based on what we heard from outside. And today I think it's a call of the hour કે આપણે સ્કૂલોમાં કે કોલેજમાં આપણે career counseling center જો મુકાવી શકતા હોય, it will be very helpful to all the children to plan their careers at the end of the day. And the fifth vertical that we have, I do a lot of talks with institutions, with bodies, because every day I can touch about 8 to 10 people personally, but when you go and talk to 500 people together, you can touch many more, spread the whole awareness of career counseling. So that's the 5 verticals that we have in our company right now.
Correct. તો વિરાજી, તમારા મતે કરેક્ટ એજ કે કરેક્ટ પીરિયડ કયો હોવો જોઈએ સ્ટુડન્ટ્સ માટે, સો દેટ ફ્યુચરમાં એ લોકો રાઇટ પાથ પર જઈ શકે?
See, typically તમે જોશો ઇન્ડિયામાં તમે જ્યારે સ્કૂલમાં આવો, લેટ્સ સે યુ બિટવીન ધ એજ ઓફ 14 to 18, તમારે કંઈ કરિયર પ્લાનિંગ કરવું હોય તમે કેવી રીતે કરો? એક, ફેમિલી ઇન્ફ્લુઅન્સ. ઇફ યુ ફ્રોમ અ લીગલ ફેમિલી, મેડિકલ ફેમિલી, બિઝનેસ ફેમિલી, યુ ટેન્ડ ટુ લુક એટ દેટ કરિયર થોડું વધારે. 2 ઇઝ બાય ઇન્ટરેસ્ટ, મારે આર્કિટેક્ટ થવું છે, આઈલ બીકમ એન આર્કિટેક્ટ. 3 ઇઝ બાય હર્ડ મેન્ટાલિટી, ઓલ માય ફ્રેન્ડ્સ આર ગોઈંગ ટુ XYZ કોલેજ, મારે બી કોલેજમાં જવું છે. અને 4 બાય સ્કોપ. એવરી uncle and aunt will come to your house and say, young man, go to law or go to engineering. People always ask me, what is the good scope in it? But today, India, there's so many opportunities to do that. The best way we thought was to do psychometric testing. In psychometric testing, what we do, we analyze a child's strengths and weaknesses, and interest, and aptitude, and we merge all three together to see what is the best career map for a child. जैसे તમારે આજે એન્જિનિયરિંગ કરવું છે, you may not have the aptitude, or તમારો aptitude છે law માટે, you may not even have thought about it. So from a psychometric test, we are able to find out 3 to 4 careers જેમાં child strengths બી છે અને aptitude બી છે. And then after we do that, to advise parents to take it up one step further so they don't get confused, I advise them to read more about the careers, to meet professionals in careers that they are planning to make a career in. એટલે તમારે આજે એડવર્ટાઇઝિંગમાં જવું છે, if you speak to 3 advertising professionals, એ લોકો તમને વધારે આઈડિયા આપશે કે શું ફ્યુચર છે આ કરિયરમાં. અને 4 વેરી ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ ઇન્ડિયામાં આપણે નથી કરતા એ જોબ શેડોઈંગ. I always tell every child and parent કે તમારે સમર મંથ્સમાં કે જ્યારે બી ટાઈમ મળે, let your child spend 1 or 2 days in each career and let him go and see what they do. I remember મારો દીકરો જ્યારે 10મી પતાવ્યું હતું 13 વર્ષ પહેલાં, he wanted to do medicine. And I put him under, why? Because his grandfather was in medicine. So I put him under a orthopedic surgeon for 2 દિવસ and 2 દિવસ under a pediatrician. 4 દિવસ પછી he ran away from medicine. એને romantic idea હતો medicine. એકવાર જોયું કે this is not my cup of tea at all. So if parents can do psychometric testing, reading, job shadowing and speaking to professionals, they have a much better idea as to what are the best careers for their child. Because opportunities are plenty. And જ્યારે બી છોકરા મારી પાસે આવે, my first thing to tell them is that after you finish your 12th, for your undergraduate degree, try and follow your passion. Because eventually life હું કહું છું કે તમારું post graduate degree is most important, not your undergraduate degree. And I give them lovely examples. Anand Mahindra ji છે, Mahindra head, he's done film studies after his 12th. આપણે રતન ટાટાજી છે, after his 12th he has done architecture. But because both of them did something which they were passionate about, they went to top business schools like Harvard Business School to do the MBA. And it's an MBA degree which helped them to become successful in what they are. So whenever any parent comes to me, I said times have changed. આજે જમાનો નથી કે આપણે 15 વર્ષ પહેલાં તમારે એન્જિનિયર થવું જોઈએ કે મેડિસિનમાં જવું જોઈએ કે CA બનવું જોઈએ કે લોયર થવું જોઈએ. આજે there is potential in every field. હજી ઇન્ડિયામાં તમે BA કે BSc કરશો, nobody respects you. But even BA અને BSc માં આજે tremendous potential છે. And if you guide a child properly કે તમે શું કરી શકો એમાં, they are also very, very enthusiastic on that whole issue.
Correct. પણ વિરાલજી, આ તમે કહ્યું કે તમે પેરેન્ટ્સને સમજાવો છો, સ્ટુડન્ટ્સને સમજાવો છો, but when they come to you, they come with a definite idea, જેમ તમે કહ્યું કે they live in little dream world.
સાચી વાત છે.
અને sometimes after you telling them કે આ એપ્ટિટ્યૂડ નથી, મેચ નથી થતું, તો પણ એવા કેસીસ બને છે કે they want to pursue what is there in their mind. અને આવી સિચ્યુએશનને તમે કેવી રીતે હેન્ડલ કરો?
No, I would never say no. તમારે જો એક કરિયર તમે જો બાંધેલું છે મનમાં કે તમારે આ કરિયર કરવી જ છે, I would support them. I would only tell them that you would work that much harder. તમારો એપ્ટિટ્યૂડ નથી, પણ જ્યારે મારો એપ્ટિટ્યૂડ એન્જિનિયરિંગ માટે હોય, હું 30 મિનિટ ભણું છું, તો તમારે 50 મિનિટમાં જ ભણવું પડશે. તમે કરી શકશો. I never tell people you cannot do a career, but this is a better career for you. પણ તમારે જો બી ઈચ્છા હોય કે તમે મેડિસિન એન્જિનિયરિંગ કરવું છે, તમારો એપ્ટિટ્યૂડ નથી, તમે જો વધારે મહેનત કરશો એમાં, you will do it. And I've seen children having very low aptitude, following their passion, doing very, very well. એટલે એવું નથી કે તમે ન કરી શકો. અને પેરેન્ટ્સ તમે થોડું કહી શકો, eventually they will decide what is best for their child. But they tend to listen because when you give them role models તમે આપશો ને કે આ છોકરા તમારા જેવો જ હતો અને આ કર્યું અને being successful, then they start looking at every parent, every child ને role model જોઈએ છે.
Right.
And my strategy is to give role models to people similar to their child. So
to make them understand
કે ભાઈ this is a career path they should do and there's nothing wrong with this career path at all. એવું ને તમારે every parent who comes to me છોકરાને એન્જિનિયર જ કરવું જોઈએ. ના તમારે શું કામ? Sometimes parents are fulfilling their own ambition to their children. True. So idea is to let the child blossom in his own career. But as you know, we still as parents, especially Indian parents, we are very convinced that conventional careers are good for the child. Many children are not suited for this career. So yes, answering your question, we can tell a child or tell a parent that you career karo, but if they don't want to do it, if they follow whatever the career they want to do, we would support them fully. But I would tell them work that much harder.
Right.
If they work harder, no career is impossible. And I give a lovely example, Lakshmi Mittal, who runs Asolo Mittal. He's ordinary BCom from St. Xavier's College, Calcutta. But today he knows more about steel than all his other steel directors combined together. Why? The man works for 14 hours a day. So always you have to inspire a child to work that much harder to fulfill a career if he doesn't have that aptitude for the career.
Correct. તો વિરાજી, તમારા મતે રાઇટ એજ શું, કયા રાઇટ એજ છે જ્યારે પેરેન્ટ્સે વિચારવું જોઈએ કે સ્ટુડન્ટ્સે વિચારવું જોઈએ ઓવરસીઝ સ્ટડીઝ માટે જવા માટે?
I think there is no right age as such. I think it depends on the maturity and the ability of the parents to pay. આજે overseas education is frightfully expensive. તમે સ્કૂલિંગ જોશો કે 11મી કે 12મીમાં ધોરણમાં લોટ ઓફ પીપલ ટુડે આર સેન્ડિંગ અબ્રોડ. ટુડે તમારો કોસ્ટ 35 થી 40 લાખ રૂપિયા પર યર થાય છે.
તો એની પણ તમે એડવાઇસ
આપીએ છે ને. લોટ ઓફ પીપલ ગો ટુ સિંગાપોર જાય છે 11th and 12th માટે, પીપલ ગો ટુ સ્વિટ્ઝરલેન્ડ, અમેરિકા, યુએસ, બટ વેરી ફ્યુ. આખા ઇન્ડિયામાં મારે હિસાબે 200થી વધારે લોકો નહીં હોય છે લોકો હાઈસ્કૂલ એજ્યુકેશન માટે અબ્રોડ જતા હોય છે. પણ તમે અંડર ગ્રેજ્યુએટ ડિગ્રી માટે, બેચલર્સ માટે પ્લેન્ટી ઓફ ગોઈંગ. I would say last 5 વર્ષમાં I have seen a jump of 300% in number of people who are going abroad for undergraduate studies.
Okay.
And that is because Indiaમાં affluency has risen, foreign exchange is freely available, 3 more IB schools have come up, and 4 internet has become level playing field. આજે હું જોઉં છું, I've got a boy this year from Pilibhit in Uttar Pradesh who's gone to 7 Ivy League schools in Stanford. I had a boy 3 years ago from Rajkot to go to Harvard, Stanford and Princeton. This is the new India. It is no more the privilege of the urban elite કે એ લોકો જઈ શકશે. એટલે આજે with internet available, it's becoming much more spread today. So that is why undergraduate education, I would still say it's worth going for if you cannot get into something out here. આજે તમારે engineering કરવું છે, getting into IIT or good engineering college is so difficult. Then I tell people if you can afford it, send your child abroad. But I still believe things like commerce છે, કે law છે, કે architecture છે, I would still prefer stay back in India. But ઘણી વસ્તુ થાય છે આજે ઇટ્સ બીકમ અ હર્ડ મેન્ટાલિટી. તમે કોઈ બી અર્બન સિટીમાં જાઓ, બોમ્બે, દિલ્હી, અમદાવાદ, બેંગ્લોર, everybody wants to go abroad. Not the parents necessarily, the child. Because in their schooling, everybody is going abroad, so they also want to go abroad. But I would always caution a person that I would never stretch and borrow to educate a child abroad for undergraduate studies. Jowo, if you can afford it, child has the ability to moklao. Otherwise, I would say Indian education is good, and if you plan the Indian education properly, it can be a winner. So I would say abroad, atyarna lagbhag I would say about 10,000 students every year would be going abroad for undergraduate studies. 200 for 11th and 12th, about 10,000 for undergraduate studies. But the majority will go for postgraduate studies. ત્યાં તમે number will increase 3 to 4 times than the undergraduate studies. That's where the major focus is. And that is the time you should go, because at તમે ઇન્ડિયામાં ભણાવો, that is the time you must go and expose yourself. And then you get handsome scholarships and financial aid also. આજે તમે undergraduate studies માટે abroad જશો, financial aid and or scholarships are not easily available. But for postgraduate degrees, lots of financial aid and scholarships are available. So I would say I'm still a fan to keep a child back up to the 12th, definitely in India if you can. Undergraduate studies, but depending on what you want to do, send your child abroad if you need to, otherwise keep them back out here. I'm a big fan of keeping students back in India because I think there's tremendous potential in India also.
India now.
India में admission क्या મળે છે?
जी.
તમે આજે જુઓ, cutoff at St. Stephen's 97-98%, St. Xavier's for economics 97%. A child wants to, there are limited colleges. The number of schools in India have increased by 300% I would say last 5 years, but number of colleges have barely increased. There's a big gap between the number of colleges and number of students who are graduating. And that is why by force, today parents are having their children to be sent abroad by admission મળતું નથી. Either you'll be brilliant or you'll pay capitation fee. Otherwise, getting admission has become impossible in this country.
Coming back to, તમે હમણાં earlier mention કર્યું કે હવે it's not for only the urban students going abroad, but you get a lot of students from smaller cities.
Smaller cities, absolutely.
તો આ ફ્લો ક્યારથી તમને જોવા મળી રહ્યો છે?
I think this has come more in the last 7-8 years. 2 reasons. One, તમે જોશો second tier cities માં affluency has increased. Because of whatever reasons. Let's say Gujarat because of the agricultural sector, Punjab because of the agriculture sector, in small towns like Indore, in Nagpur because of the retail sector, business sector, and people have become far more affluent. આજે તમે 7 to 8% growth જો ઇન્ડિયામાં last 6-7 years માં, obviously affluency has increased. And for any parent, prestige comes with a child's education. And જે parent પોતાનું education fulfill ન કરી શક્યા છે, they want to fulfill it through their child. And what happens in society when your child is better educated, maybe even educated abroad, તમારું status in society also rises up. So basically, I would say in the last 7-8 years, in the small town of India, lot more students are applying abroad. આજે if you look at 100 students જે ઇન્ડિયાથી બહાર જાય છે, about 70% હજી still અમેરિકા જાય છે. About 20% will go to Canada. બીજા UK, Australia, સિંગાપોરમાં જશે. Students from middle class backgrounds, I would say they are going more for postgraduate studies. Undergraduate studies, haji still it is the privilege of the urban elite, the professionals are very well paid, and the business communities. But today what is very interesting is that after studying there for 4 years, people are looking to coming back to India and working out here, which I think is the biggest change I've seen in the last 3 years, 4 years. Because the economy booming in this country, rather than working in America, they would rather come back to India and work out here, which I think is very, very interesting.
utilize કરે.
Yes.
Coming back, હા, આ તો તમે કરો છો, પણ તમારો એક સિક્રેટ શોખ છે લખવાનો, અને મેં વાંચ્યું છે કે તમે કો ઓથર કરી છે એક બુક, એના વિશે કંઈ કહો.
You know, because I do counseling, you get so much of feedback from parents and students. One of the things that I've regularly been doing is I've been writing a lot of columns for newspapers, magazines on careers. The secret passion of mine, which you rightly said, was I've been to a lovely school in Bombay called the Cathedral School, and the Cathedral School is intertwined with the history of Mumbai, and it has produced leaders from J.R.D. Tata to Zulfikar Bhutto to Salman Rushdie. So I thought it was important for posterity that I document this history of a school which not only influenced the city influenced the school also. And for posterity, for future generations, know what a great school and what a great city we were in. So I did a 6-year project where I took time off and I wrote this whole book, and it was launched in 2010 when we had the 150th year of our school's events going on. So yes, it has been a passion, it's been a great journey. It took me to researching all over the world, met very interesting people, and I think I fulfilled one dream of mine was to document this history, which I think was a wonderful, wonderful project.
અને એ પેશન હજી તમે કન્ટિન્યુ રાખ્યું છે?
I hope to. I'm thinking of doing 2 more books on motivating children to follow their passion.
No, wow.
Because that's something which I want to do. I want to talk about examples of how people have followed their passion, how they've been successful. But in India, Haji, we don't have that philosophy with parents, you know. We are still very conventional. So that's something which I am right now in the process of getting together. Hopefully next couple of years that book should also be out.
તમારા મતે ઇન્ડિયન એડ્યુકેશન વેર ઇટ ઇઝ લેકિંગ, અને શું કામ પ્રિફર કરે છે સ્ટુડન્ટ્સ અબ્રોડ જઈને ભણવા માટે?
I think the population of our country has increased tremendously. Schools have increased tremendously. But number of colleges, if you ask me, has remained static. હું આપને પૂછું આજે કેટલી નવી કોલેજ તમે નેમ કરી શકો છો લાસ્ટ 10 વર્ષમાં? barely on your fingertips. But તમે સ્કૂલો જોશો, there are more than 300% increase in schools. એટલે there's a big gap between the number of colleges available for a good student and number of schools. So એ gap fulfill કરવા માટે I don't think the government has given that much of support to universities to be set up out here. That's why people are more going into schools. But again, what causes malice in India, what causes the problems in Indian education, it's the quality of the professors. We've got brilliant professors, but how are they paid today? They're paid peanuts today. I remember I was at a conference the other day, and I had a university vice chancellor, and he was saying, you know, Mr. Doshi, if you pay us fees like America, we'll give you the education like America also, which I thought was very correct.
વિરાજી, ઓવરસીઝ એડ્યુકેશન કઈ રીતે જોબ ઓપોર્ચ્યુનિટીઝ ક્રિએટ કરે છે બોથ ઇન ઇન્ડિયા એન્ડ અબ્રોડ ફોર ધ સ્ટુડન્ટ્સ?
I think abroad getting a job is not easy today, especially in places like UK and Singapore. It's much more challenging. That way in America and Canada, jobs are possible. And typically I've seen jobs, people who are getting jobs are people who have done very well in their education or done very well academically. But by and large, even jobs are drying up out there. People are returning to India. But let me tell you one thing, India jare pacha avsho, when I talk to employers out here, they say we would rather prefer somebody from a Indian institution than somebody from a foreign education.
Oh.
The foreign degree has no additional value in this country. Let me tell you that. That's very, very interesting. You're going there for the experience, remember that. But when you come back out here, you'll be put on par with any of the good Indian institutes out here. India has fabulous institutes. Look at the IITs, look at the IIMs. But there are fewer, yeah. You'll be on par with them at the end of the day. So when I talk to employers, they say, Viral, when we have a child, India abroad pacho ave che, it's sort of attitude hoy che, he thinks that he knows everything. Whereas the child who studied out here can be molded, you know, he can adapt to what we have. So that's where the Indian, so I always tell people, if you're looking at a job in India, tamare અહીંયા job લેવો હોય, I still prefer graduation અહીંયા કરો, પછી post graduate માટે abroad જાઓ.
કરેક્ટ. તમે જેમ મેન્શન કર્યું એમ કે આઈઆઈટી, વી હેવ આઈઆઈટી એન્ડ આઈઆઈએમ, અને તમે જેમ કીધું વિચ મને બી ખબર નથી કે those people are preferred more than people coming from abroad.
Absolutely.
તો તમે આ બિઝનેસ ઇન્ડિયન બિઝનેસ સ્કૂલ્સને how would you compare with the foreign business school?
I tell people, જો તમારે ઇન્ડિયામાં રહેવું હોય તો going to Indian business school definitely is far more advisable. But you get a pulse of the Indian market. And also તમે જ્યારે કોલેજ જાઓ છો, you're not going for the education only, you're going for the networking. તમે ઇન્ડિયન કોલેજમાં ભણશો અહીંયા તો તમારું networking is going to be very, very strong. જ્યારે તમે લાઈફમાં આગળ વધશો, the network is going to help you to rise up in life. That's why given a choice, if you can stay back in India, nothing like India. But શું છે ઇન્ડિયામાં there are about 10-15 top business schools. હવે અમેરિકામાં there are 300 top business schools. Choice is much more out there. એટલે if you get, but getting into Indian colleges is far more difficult. I think to get into IIM Ahmedabad for one seat, there are more than 700 applications. To go to Harvard AJ for one seat, there are 14 applications. So look at the disparity. એટલે આજે તમારે ઇન્ડિયામાં રહેવાની ઈચ્છા બી હોય, how do you get in? And so everything here is very good in one way, is meritocracy. I mean, you have the CAT exam or the JE exam. If you're good, you get in. If you're not good, you don't get in. So what happens to a child who's not that strong, he still wants to do a career, he is now has to go abroad. If તમે abroad જાઓ તો go with the philosophy of going there for the experience, not કે તમારે ત્યાં abroad તમે ડિગ્રી લઈને અહીંયા આવશો તમને પ્રેફરન્સ મળશે, એવું થતું જ નથી. અહીંયા I would say તમે સર્વે કરજો કે કોઈ બી આજે કંપનીમાં બે ચોઇસીસ હોય, અમેરિકન એજ્યુકેશન, ઇન્ડિયન એજ્યુકેશન, both of them are on par, they prefer the Indian education child. Very interesting.
અને વિરાજી તમે કહ્યું કે there is a lot of disparity in our education system. નવી ગવર્મેન્ટ આવી ગઈ છે, આગળ જતાં શું લાગે છે એજ્યુકેશન સિસ્ટમમાં કોઈ બદલાવ જોઈ રહ્યા છો આ ગવર્મેન્ટ તરફથી?
Still early days કહું છું હજી ગવર્મેન્ટમાં. I think with every government one is hopeful that new things will be implemented. But I think it's not been yet very encouraging, and I think they should look very seriously into supporting post-undergraduate education. Post-12th education, what I meant, because up to schooling is superb in our country. I don't think the government needs to interfere there. But after the 12th, there's a very big lacuna of quality colleges, and if they can give support to corporates, I'm not saying bring colleges from abroad. We have enough talent in our country to set up great colleges. But I think encouragement has to be given by the government. Like the government gives soaps for industry to set up industries, why not give soaps to companies to set up educational establishments? So I think with more freedom that will come, and one is hopeful the new government will give that freedom, hopefully, to allow companies, institutions and individuals set up great universities in this country. And I think there is a growing trend. It will take time, but I think there is a growing trend, and I'm hopeful that in the next 10-15 years, if we have much better institutes out here, I think people will be very encouraged to stay back in our country and get undergraduate education out here.
Okay. વિરાજી તમારા થ્રુ જે સ્ટુડન્ટ્સ જાય છે અબ્રોડ, વન્સ દે ગો, શું એના પ્રોગ્રેસ પર બી તમે એક ટેપ રાખો છો?
આઈ એમ લાઈક અ લાઈફ કોચ. યુ નો આઈ ટેક્સ છોકરાઓ લગભગ 14 કે 15 વર્ષે મારી પાસે લોકો આવે, that time we do career counseling, એના પછી we plan their 4 years in a high school માં, અને we mentor them. Every 1 year we meet them and we find out where they are, where they're heading, because છોકરા શું છે, they will not listen to their parents very easily, but they listen to a third party much more easily. એટલે parents use me as a facilitator to talk to the children. એટલે we meet them on a regular basis. So what happens, 4 વર્ષમાં you develop a very good rapport with the child. And as they go for university education અહીંયા કે abroad, they keep in touch with you rather than you keeping in touch with them, asking you questions, શું કરવું જોઈએ, કયા કોર્સ લેવા જોઈએ, શું career path લેવું જોઈએ, શું internship કરવી જોઈએ. So typically I become like a life coach from 14 to 25 with them, and the tremendous sense of pleasure to be with them and guide them. You become like a life coach to them. So it's a lot of fun. So they are in touch with you more than you are in touch with them, I would say.
Okay. અને વિરાજી બીજું હું પૂછવા માંગીશ કે ઇન્ડિયન સ્ટુડન્ટ્સ છે અબ્રોડ જતા હોય છે ભણવા માટે, એમના માટે આખું એક નવું એન્વાયરમેન્ટ હોય છે. એક તો તમે એ લોકોને કઈ રીતે પ્રિપેર કરો છો, નંબર 1. નંબર 2, ક્યાં એ લોકો ત્યાં જઈને લેક થઈ શકે છે અને કયા પોઈન્ટ્સ એ લોકો માટે એડવાન્ટેજીસ બની શકે છે once they go there?
I think by and large આપણે ઇન્ડિયન છોકરા વેરી હાર્ડ વર્કિંગ. That goes without saying. અને જ્યારે એ લોકો આટલો ખર્ચો કરવાનો હોય, they work much harder in America than I would say they work out here. એટલે one thing I've seen, જ્યારે છોકરા જાય છે, the feedback I get from professors, they work very, very hard. But I think there's a little bit difference in working hard. અમેરિકામાં તમે જોશો, it is more working continuously hard, not just 1 month before the exam. આપણી કન્ટ્રીમાં હજી we work 1 month, 2 months before the exam and we do well in the papers. But I think one big change I always tell students is, please start working consistently and continuously, not just 1 month before the exam. Number 2, I think what we lack in our education is the ability to read. One thing I always tell parents and children also, you must encourage your child to read, because biggest problem children have when they go to America is writing papers. In their English classes, they stumble a lot. Even the best of students, Delhi, Bombay, they're stumbling because they don't read too much. And that's one habit I always tell children from the 9th standard upwards, start reading magazines, newspapers, books, because that's one thing you will find a problem when you go abroad, that you can't write papers well. And 3, one thing we have not taught our children in our country, whether in school or in college, is how to write research papers. Biggest problem I find, people are going there, we have a habit of just taking things off the internet. In America, if you plagiarize, you can be put behind bars, you know. So that's one thing you have to educate them, that look here, when you do research, you do authentic research, tamare bibliography banavi જોઈએ, you have to give references. That's something is still not being taught in the Indian system. હજી આવે છે IB curriculum and international curriculum, but not in the Indian curriculum. So these are 3 phases I have seen students are stumbling in America. But otherwise they're very, very hard working. And તમે તો જોશો, you always hear of stories કે આ છોકરો અમેરિકા ગયો ત્યાં બહુ સારું કર્યું. Why? Because the system abroad, basically it harnesses your strengths. India we tend to still look at the weakness of a child. We don't look at the strength of a child. Abroad they look at the strength of a child. That is what makes the American education or the overseas education so wonderful, કે તમારા strength એ લોકો harness કરે છે, તમારા weakness નથી જોતા.
Very true. Finally, વિરલભાઈ, તમારા પ્રોફેશનમાં મોસ્ટ સેટિસ્ફાઈંગ ફેક્ટર અને મોમેન્ટ્સ તમને ક્યારે મળે છે?
I think it's one of them. I think I would not do anything to. This is one of the best careers I would recommend to anybody if they have a passion for children. But I think the biggest satisfaction is when you sow that small seed with the child to plan a career, and you see that child grow like a tree, and you mentor him over a 10-year period, and he comes back with all his success stories. It's a tremendous sense of satisfaction.
Okay, Viralbhai, thank you so much for this wonderful interview. And I think a lot of children are joining ઘણું શીખશે અને ઘણા આગળ વધી શકશે.
Thank you again. Thank you. My pleasure.